Hi, Ananga.
Hey Gayatri, how are you?
Doing good. I was actually listening to our podcast with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and it was so insightful to understand the differences of how one can practice spirituality, being connected with an organization. But what's most important, he also emphasized that institution is for inspiration, but your personal growth is so important. And I want to share a dear friend and his work with all of us and our viewers here. His name is Veda Ji. And
Hi
hi,
Vedaji.
Veda Ji. How are you?
Happy to meet both of you again.
So wonderful to have you. And I want to talk about Veda Ji today. Veda Ji is the founder and facilitator of the Mindful Institute, which is actually, he calls it Mindful Seva Institute. He's developed wonderful programs that we're going to hear about, specifically Chitta Cleanse. He has inspired so many people to take up spirituality in their own lives. So, Vedaji, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast here. And we're so excited to hear about what you do, how you do it, how do you share this wonderful knowledge with so many aspirants of spirituality. Thank
So
you.
I'm happy to be here with both of you. What I really do is try to spark something that's already been burning inside of each and every living entity, which is to seek something greater than themselves. So I just go around fanning. That's what I do full time. And in pursuit of that, I have different modalities and different spiritual processes that people can adopt, and they can definitely see a tremendous impact that it will be evident when they go through these processes. So,
Beautiful.
yeah, go
So,
ahead.
tell us a little bit about the institute that you formed, the Seva Institute. What does that stand for? And what was your thought process when you put something like this together?
And I'm also interested in hearing about Chitta Cleanse. It seems very
Yeah, what
lucrative.
is Chitta? And,
What is Chitta and what are we cleansing here?
it's
Sure,
definitely not a dry clean service.
this is fantastic. So, Mindful Seva Institute is an organization we created because I am a student of Bhakti Vedanta Swami. Bhakti Vedanta is very unique for me because it is taking Vedanta and Bhakti and is going on a parallel track. And so taking the element of Vedanta and making sure that Bhakti is also going on a separate track, but it's parallelly traveling together. What that does is enables individuals to engage their intelligence and also engage the heart. If you
Beautiful.
just engage the heart, sometimes the intelligence is not involved in your life, and it can become very sentimental and emotional, which is great, but some people need more than that. And
Mm.
so to provide access to intelligence in life decisions and spiritual pursuits, it's more satisfying for some people. Personally, for me, I prefer having a rational intellectual discussion and be convinced about a particular process or a particular theory before I experiment it. So that works for me. And so when I'm engaged with the world and people around the world, I engage with their intelligence and then I engage with their heart. And that is what Bhakti Vedanta to me means. And it has been a process that I have noticed that really works for people.
So
Beautiful.
does intelligence and heart also transform into action? Like sometimes people would say that I am a spiritual practitioner, I don't need to go anywhere, it's everything's in my heart, but basically not do anything. And like you said, it can be very it can get very sentimentalistic and very emotional, but is there, until and unless there is an external input and an inner transformation, can we even say that bhakti or spirituality is wholesome?
Bhakti is wholesome. But to get to bhakti is not that easy. Bhakti is a path. And that path is not an easy path. There's going to be a lot of potholes. There's going to be a lot of sideshows. And you have to know how to actually stay on the path. And that's why buddhi or intelligence is very critical. Once you know, okay, here's the GPS, you know how to get from point A to point B, but you have to know how to drive to get from point A to point B. And so the point of engaging intelligence, without buddhi, without intelligence, there is no bhakti. You can't do bhakti.
Mhm.
That's why Bhakti Vedanta, it's very important. Our teacher, Bhakti Vedanta Swami, his name is Bhakti Vedanta, and he's very shown how intelligence is a very key component of the practice that he established. It is not a sentimental process.
I actually really appreciated what you said. It's the two paths and the two parallels that you drew with Vedanta and Bhakti. Just explains to me the stability that comes from this balance of rational understanding and then also putting in the heart. So, the stability in your spiritual life can really come from actually knowing why we do what we do, having a purpose to that, and then putting your heart and soul into it. So, something so beautiful that you drew out with just your teacher's name is splendid. Thank you.
You
Thank you for sharing
articulated better than me, so I appreciate that.
that. Thank you. And tell us a little bit about what was your thought process while you came up with this Mindful Seva Institute? How do you help people? What kind of people really come to you? Who's interested in mindful thinking and what
Chitta
kind?
Cleanse as well.
Yeah.
I don't wait for people to come to me. I actually go to people. And that's one of my approaches, because it's very important to find out where people are and then go to those people. So I spent most of my time with people who are atheists, people who are not very familiar to the practice of spirituality, but people who are thoughtful, who are intelligent, who are caught up in the race of materialism. And I have a tendency to present questions. So part of the Vedanta strategy is to provide them with positive self-inquiry questions, existential questions, pre-existential questions, which is all part of Vedanta Sutra, which is all part of our Bhakti literatures. A lot of questions are asked. And simply through the process of asking questions, it is not just self-inquiry. Self-inquiry in itself is great, but I feel that the process, the component of bhakti comes in when we do positive self-inquiry. And then the element of bhakti also comes in where we do existential self-inquiry and pre-existential self-inquiry, because in bhakti we understand that there was life before this life. So when we continuously go through this process of questioning, I'm able to pause people wherever they're at. And when I can get them to pause is when they ask themselves these questions and they're able to contemplate on it and then seek further. And then they join the different retreats that I do around the world and my online classes in various different languages. So that's basically the
I'm
audience.
curious to know, why do you approach, like you said, atheists? Is it because you tap into their buddhi aspect and then you bring in the heart aspect later on?
See, everyone in this world is intelligent. There's no dumb people in this world. And so we need to see how to cater to their intelligence. And the ancient texts actually give us all the roadmap for it. And all we have to do is take that roadmap and present it to them. Because most people think that this practice of bhakti and spirituality is a very sentimental practice, but it's actually not a sentimental practice.
That's true.
It has a science, yeah.
It's very deep science. It's way beyond, because material science deals with matter. And we're talking about spiritual science that's dealing with metaphysics. So spiritual science is what matters.
Amazing. Tell us what these components, tell us the component of your retreat. When you go,
Components.
yeah, the different components of your retreat.
Okay. Well, in our retreats, we address three-dimensional aspects of our existence. We address what is this body, and to be able to dissect this body. From a material perspective, understanding the 5 elements that the body comprises of, and then to understand the subtle elements, the subtle bodies, and then to understand that there is something beyond the subtle body, which is the spirit body. So physical body and the psychological body and the spirit body. So we address all this 3-dimensional existence, and we do it through an experiential process. It is not someone just standing there and giving a lecture. No, you are going to actually experience that you're not this body. And we do that through breath work. We teach different modalities of breath where you realize that breath plays a very integral part in combining. It's like a string that combines the physical and the psychological and the spiritual. In the wisdom text we study, prane bhutam cha bhavyam cha prane sharvam pratishritam. Prana hi Bhagavan Vishnu Matarishvara. So this prana is life. And there's an individual life and there's a supreme life. And we also know from the wisdom text, when this young 5-year-old saintly prince, he is endowed with divine knowledge and he starts to speak in Sanskrit. And he talks about this beautiful verse, Yontaf pravesha mama vacha mimam prashuttam sanjeevayatya khila shakti dharaswadhamna anyamscha hasta charana shravanat vagadim pranan namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. And he actually talks about how this prana has entered into his life and all his senses are activated. And he is explaining very clearly that prana is God himself. Although it's invisible, but it's there. So intertwined in this 3-dimensional existence, there is this element of invisible God. And some people call that prana. So we have to give them an experience of what is this 3-dimensional existence that we live.
It's amazing.
Amazing. You mentioned so much about breath work and prana and Vishnu. You connected it to Vishnu through the verse. In astrology, it's mentioned that Jupiter, that's the deity of Jupiter, we connect to Vishnu. And also, it is connected with your breath. So if somebody's Jupiter is malefic or retro, they have breathing related problems, asthma. And it's like, it's amazing how these things are so connected.
Yes. In the
Everything that you're speaking
in the,
about.
in the Prashna Upanishad, there is a beautiful verse. It says, Pranashyahi Sharanam Hridayam. That means when prana takes shelter of the heart, and it's talking about shelter of the heart means the supreme consciousness.
Beautiful.
So it's good that it's also connected to Jyotish, astrology.
Phenomenal.
I loved it. Prana takes shelter of the heart. I just love it.
Yeah. So after you speak about the Panchabhuta, the how do you dive into, how with breath work does one have this experience of of being present in the body?
I give you a simple example, right? Many of us, we do this japa meditation every single day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
For me, I've been doing this meditation for maybe 20 or 42 years, give or take. And I did not understand the deep insights of what it is to actually sit with the sound and the impact of sound on the body and the mind and on the spirit, how the three-dimensional impact. And I just do it because I was told to do it, and teachers tell you, you do it, you make a promise, and you just do it. It's a mechanical process. And the funny thing is that the world it's a mechanical process, and this body is mechanical, and there's something else within this body that makes the mechanics work. So I wanted to know the mechanical consequence of, or the byproduct of this japa. And then I started to notice my breath plays a very important role. And so when I started to do this 16 syllable mantra meditation, I started to notice that in one breath, in the release of one breath, I used to chant 4 times 16. What is that?
Oh, wow. Really?
64.
64, right? So 64 syllables in one release of the breath.
Oh, you could. Wow.
And the whole process of doing that was because I wanted to hurry things up. I had million things to do, and I just wanted to speed it up as fast as I could. But little did I notice that the power of this mantra is more active when you slow things down. And that's where the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. That's when you start to feel calm and peaceful. So when I teach this mantra meditation as aligning the three-dimensional existence, I teach people to release the 16-syllable mantra with the release of 8 seconds of breath to 10 seconds to 12 seconds to 14 seconds. And when you get it to 16 seconds, then you have reached the pinnacle of what this mantra can give you.
So when you say 16 seconds, means 16 seconds for one mantra?
Release, yes. So when you're doing the mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, and you have to do it with 16 seconds of release. That means your attention is supremely focused on the sound vibration entering your body and your heart. No one is there yet. They're doing 6 seconds, which is great. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. 6 seconds. But our goal is to try and make sure that you really have to make the breath is a garland of necklace, a flower garland that you place to God in your heart. So this whole process is deeply ingrained with the breath.
So I was curious, Vedaji. So definitely this is, as we know, this mantra is no ordinary mantra. It's a living name. Plus the sound is so powerful because it's bringing the living name inside our heart. How does the pace help in piercing the three-dimensional?
How the what?
How does the pace, like from 6 seconds to 16 seconds?
Yeah, it's very interesting you asked that question. You have to experiment it. So I'll give you my theory on it because I've been experimenting on this. So we notice that our breath is very much connected to our emotions. When you're angry, your heartbeat speeds up and you breathe faster. And our emotions are controlling the breath patterns. When we incorporate this mantra into the breath, what we are consciously doing is we are actually making sure that the physical and the psychological aspects of our being is also addressed through this mantra meditation, the physical and the psychological. Otherwise, what's happening is just the spiritual part of it, and we speed up as fast as we can because we have appointments to get to. So we slow that process down by addressing the need to focus on the breath and the release of the sound. So now, because it's connected to the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, and we know from yoga, Ida and Pingala, and there comes a point of Shushumna where you find calm and peace, that this meditation is no longer hurried. And as soon as the hurriness is gone out of the equation, it's piercing all dimensions of your existence. Physically, you're stationed, emotionally stable, and you're heart-centered. So the whole point of this is really to address just one aspect, addressing three dimensions. So you get this in the retreats.
Sign me up.
You're on. I'm going to sign you up for the next one in Catskills, New York, July 9th.
I think
Wow.
I really liked the explanation that you gave, and especially the hastiness. I had another discussion around that. The hastiness, of course, you explained that how when we focus on breath work, we can go deeper into our consciousness, but it's also along with breath work, there is building a spiritual home at heart as well. So, especially during pandemic, we saw that everybody was locked down, and they couldn't go anywhere to the retreats, to the temples, anywhere. So they started going internally, and whatever they had experienced externally, like going out, having like-minded association, the meditation, service, they all had that was all stopped in one sense because they were all home at that time. So people had to internalize everything. So can you talk more how during times of adversity or crisis, or when we deeply have to surrender, we can go internal and really go into the depth of the mantra, go into the depth of what we are practicing, because God or spirituality isn't behind just locked doors, it's also in our heart. And I personally wanted to learn from you because you are creating these spiritual communities and inspiring these aspirants. How do you teach them that the physical temple or a physical space or a physical retreat is just a launch pad for the true devotion? It's not our destination.
It's a beautiful question. In this ancient wisdom text called the Bhagavad Gita, where these two incredible friends are having the most deep dialogue about life and crisis. And there, Krishna, one of the friends, he explains to his friend Arjuna, Ishware Sharva Bhutanam, that the divine is actually Hridaye, Ishwara Sharva Bhutanam, Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati, that the divine being, the divine consciousness is actually situated in the heart. I thought, very interesting. If the most profound wisdom texts is mentioning this point. There's something deep that we need to research. And the more you do research, we see in the lives and the writings of the saints, they emphasize this point of cultivating the inner sanctuary of the heart. There's another beautiful song that I like. Tomara Hridaya Shada Govinda Vishram. That the pleasure of the senses, the divine source, is literally situated in the inner chambers of your heart. And it's not situated, it's resting. Is restfully situated in the inner sanctuaries of your heart. And I'm thinking, there's a lot to this. And when you look at it from the yoga perspective, even like the chakra perspective, right? There are 7 chakras. If you go from the heart chakra down, is addressing the elements of earthly existence. And then as soon as you go heart and up, those are your upper levels of existence. So what is literally happening is that heart is the junction where matter and spirit, they connect.
Beautiful.
It is the place where ego dissolves and bows to the principle of divine love. Because heart is the seat of divine love. Heart is the seat where this divine form of divine masculine personification of the embodiment of love and the divine male embodiment of love. We're talking about the transcendental, eternal, unconditional spiritual love. These two beings in their purest, ultimate spiritual form are situated in that heart. And so, if that is where they're situated, then it must be a very sacred place.
Mm.
And so, we know from the yoga text, they explain that the body is the temple, the breath is the incense, and the 5 sensory faculties is the lamp, is the pancha pradeep, and the heart is the altar.
It's amazing.
There's so many beautiful definitions in our yoga text talking about how the heart is the seat of the source, of the creator. And so why not figure out how to instill people with the deepest knowledge of the path of bhakti, which is literally leading you to the heart. And the path is not very long. It's from your mind to your heart. It's less than a foot. But it's very tedious. And so therefore, this whole practice of bhakti that I feel is very important is how to create temple in the hearts of each and every living entity. Because they already have it. All you have to do is help them to install the deity of their heart. Everything has a unique form. And what is that form of love? Who is it to you? For some people, it's Jesus on a cross, and that's fantastic. For some people, it's Krishna. So we teach them how to actually worship God in their heart.
I am completely mesmerized by your beautiful explanation. I'm serious, Vedaji. It's been such an enlivening talk. You're sharing and the connectivity of how this body, the breath work is the incense, and it was just so beautiful. I could
Mind
like
blown.
visualize the temple within the heart. Now, when you talk about the heart and you said it's a sacred space, it's an altar for whoever we want to worship to place within our heart. How does that lead us into your chitta cleanse? When you're talking about chitta, are you talking about the heart? Are you talking about the mind? Are you talking about the consciousness? And
It's
We understand cleanse means to clean. But what is this chitta cleanse? What are we trying to clean?
Thanks, Gayatri, for asking that again. I'm so curious to know about this.
It's a great question. So as my focus is to teach people how to worship the source, the supreme consciousness, the supreme being in the altar of the heart, in the lotus of the altar of the heart. So in order to do that, we have a process. And the process that has been prescribed to us is the process of bhakti, process of love. So now, what does that even mean? Because many people don't understand what it means to love, because we have a very perverted concept of what that spiritual emotion is. Because every time it's emotion, it's very mundane and very material, very subjective and very selfish. So we focus on this Chitta Cleanse, which is to actually understand the process. There is a process to remove the debris from the past to reach your heart. Every time there's a storm in anywhere in the world, there's going to be a lot of debris in the streets. And our life has been nothing but a storm. From the moment we come into this world, we have been given so many promises. And promises are broken time and again, over and over. And what happens? Every time those promises are broken, there is a piece of the truth, the absolute truth, is covered. The pure self is getting covered and covered with debris. And it piles up. Let me give you another example. You all have homes and you have a basement in the house. When you buy toys for your children, every month, every year, you keep buying new toys, new shoes, new clothes. And once they grow out of the old ones, what do you do with the clothes? You put them in a basement. You lock them up, put them in boxes, and you put them in your storage in the basement. And the basement gets full and gets more full and gets more full. And eventually it's so packed, you can't put anything in there. And you have no idea what's there, but you have an idea of all the things that has been stored there, but you have no idea where you place them. So our life is an amalgamation of experiences that we have gone through in life, and we have not fully processed each and every one of those hurts and pains. I'm not saying that we should process all the hearts and pains, but all the betrayals, all the broken relationships, all the promises that are broken. Time and again, some big ones, some small ones. So this debris is laying all over the street. How are we going to get to the heart? So that's why we have this process called Chitta Cleanse, which the process is a process of self-inquiry. And this process was a creation based on the inspiration of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is one of the most transparent saints in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And he journals about his struggles. And he writes, such an affluent, competent employee of the British government, that they were so impressed with his competency, they actually put a personal train track to go from his home to his office. That guy must have been pretty good. The same person, when he becomes a saint, what does he do? He digs deep into himself. He's not going outside. He's digging deep into himself, and he is writing to the Lord of his heart, and he's journaling. And what is he journaling? He's journaling about his struggles, about the pains, about the betrayals, about the illusion, about the promises that was made, and it never really fructified. So when we read his writings, we see his journey. Very beautiful. So that is the model. And he explains very principally, simple, 4 functional levels of consciousness: fear, reward, duty, and love, in that particular order. So how to elevate your consciousness from doing all actions in this world out of fear? For example, we go to work. Why? Because we're afraid we're going to be homeless. We won't be able to pay the bills. Why am I friends with both of you? Because I feel that if I'm not nice to you, then you'll cut me off from your friend circles, and I'm afraid of that, and I want to be part of that friend circle, so I want to cling on to whatever I have. There's so many fears that we have. There's a list of dozens of fears, which I won't get into it now, but we address the fundamental principle of our existence, how everything in this world rests on this consciousness of fear. And then how to elevate from that level of fear, at least to the point of reward and duty, and then eventually love. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains these 4 functional levels of consciousness. So we take everyone through this process to enable and empower people to see their own functional levels of consciousness. And once you're able to observe where you're operating from, then we tweak and teach you how to change your operational consciousness, because that is also prescribed. And all of this happens through journaling and a support system and with community.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, Prabhu. Thank you for explaining what Chitta Cleanse does, because I was also thinking around the same point that when we talk about building a temple in the heart, like building a temple outside can be seen, people can see it. There is a schedule that they follow. But building a heart inside the temple is so much riskier, because we have so much emotion suppressed. Also, building a temple in the heart is unseen, it's unhidden, it's not glamorous, because we have so many emotions suppressed. So that's the place from where true surrender starts, like you said. So it's cleansing so we can reach to the Supreme who's there sitting in our heart and purifying our consciousness. I just love that. Thank you.
I actually really appreciated this whole process of Chitta Cleanse. There's few things that you mentioned. One is reflection, journaling, and support, community. That's exactly the model, a successful model to practice any part of spirituality. You need to have a support system. You need to do some reflection. My question here is that if anyone signs up for the Chitta Cleanse, you get an introduction into journaling, you get an introduction into self-reflection and all of that. Now, is this just limited to the retreat? I
No,
hope not. I mean, this
no.
is like,
The
this is a
retreat,
journey.
yes, it's a 5-month online course. chittacleanse.com, where people sign up. So it's a 5-month course, and you meet every once a week, and you meet a community, and it's very deeply foundation on the principle of no judgment, confidentiality, no religion, no gossip. So it's and you have to sign an oath to this values. You have to sign an oath and make sure that whatever, because you have a large group, and then we have a smaller. We have nothing but breakout sessions in the groups. And we sent you videos. I have recorded videos on this process, and then we send it to you. You look at the videos, you do your homework, you bring it to the group, and then we do a little sample, and then everyone goes into their little groups and they share with each other, and they just connect. The point is, the world is in serious need of connection. There's enough content in the world. There's enough content. So what the world needs is connection. So this Chitta Cleanse is a way to connect, to have a community, and to grow. And
It's so ironical that we're connected to the outside world, but we're not connected to our inside world. So that's amazing.
yes. And it's very
Also,
simple. It's very simple because there's a lot of questions. And then we go through a process of understanding your patterns of behavior with fear. And then we go through a process of reconciliation, how to reconcile. And then there's acceptance, and then there's surrender. And that's how we're able to show you and guide you back to the temple of the heart. And then now you recognize your temple, you know where to go to when there's issues in life, and you're all set.
So are they able to go from fear to love, like you were mentioning, in these
Absolutely.
5 months? It's amazing.
I give you an example. There's someone who's a very high placed attorney, like very highly placed in the government. She's doing Chitta Cleanse. I mean, she just did. And the question that was asked is, what was your biggest fear? And the biggest fear is injustice. And then we go to the event of injustice in her life. And there was one experience of injustice, and that propelled her to pursue a career that went on for 30 years. So one experience, imagine, completely changed the trajectory of her choices in life. So she never actually got to live her life. Her choices, her decisions is based on this one experience. And so she was able to see it. And now that's all she knows, because that's all she invested her time in, how to accept that situation and how to surrender and how to engage that propensity to serve others.
this is just absolutely amazing. I'm totally awestruck and just mesmerized, to say the least. No, I'm not kidding. I've known you for so long, Veda. My question here is that sometimes we've been told as spiritual practitioners that you just continue the process of bhakti, you stay connected to similar association, you chant the mantra, and everything else will be taken care of, which I understand as a fact. But however, the way you put it, that you need to also clean and you need to remove all the junk that you've been hoarding in the basement so that you can actually really, you're not trying to climb uphill with a whole lot of baggage. So you keep dropping the baggage, the uphill journey of moving forward in spirituality becomes so much more easier, so much more pleasurable, and so much more. And why do you think that there is so much resistance to this cleansing process? Is it because it's not easy? Is it because it's vulnerable? You have to be vulnerable. What do you see that holds spiritual practitioners back from getting into something, literally dissecting your life and living through those emotions again to really clean out? It's like going through the garage and really going through all your junk and trying to sort out what can be useful and what can't be useful. What do you think is holding us back?
If I were to be blunt, I would say people are weak. And if I were to be more politically correct, I would say people are afraid to show their powers, because vulnerability is not a weakness. Vulnerability is actually power. If you read the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's just crying. You just look at him like a crybaby. No. Gopinath, I'm having this problem. Gopinath, I'm having that problem. Gopinath, this, Gopinath, that. He's just like complaining. He's like a complete whiner. He just whines the whole time. His whole spiritual life is nothing but whining. That's how it can be perceived. But I perceive it as he's the most powerful saint that I have ever encountered in my life. He is actually showing me what real life looks like, what struggle feels like. And he shows me what triumph looks like. He's given me the full spectrum. He's my man. So we have to understand that vulnerability is not weakness. Any relationship that does not have vulnerability, that means their relationship is on a weak footing. If we cannot go to God and we cannot be honest with our heart and the Lord residing in our heart, that's something fundamentally wrong with us. If we cannot sit with our Sangha, like in the Chitta Cleanse, everyone is crying. Because that is the most powerful part of you. The struggles that you have had, that is what made you who you are. So vulnerability is the most powerful quality in the practice of bhakti. And in Chitta Cleanse, you're going to have 100% vulnerability. And that's why they're able to experience bhakti in the heart. Because 100% vulnerability. Every one of my retreats, we create day one, we crack it open, and we want to deal with you from your power of strength, not from your weakness. If you got things to hide and you don't want to share, you want to keep it in the closet, take it home. But if you really want to grow, it is from that growth comes from power, not from weakness. And vulnerability is the most powerful quality that any living entity ever possesses. And that is why the material nature is designed to crush you. It's strictly designed. There's nothing in this material world that you can succeed, because material energy is there just to crush you, to make you fail time and again, so that you realize that the material world is not a place of success, but it is a place where you can actually go on your knees and pray, because success is on the next level. It's not on a mundane physical level. It's on a metaphysical spiritual plane. That is what success is. I know this sounds crazy, but these are the facts. And students who come to these retreats, who go to these sanghas, they realize, hey man, be you. Only when you only when you acknowledge your powers can you really surrender. Otherwise, pseudo surrender. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is teaching in Sharanagati, which they learn in the later part of the Chitta Cleanse. That's the conclusion of the Chitta Cleanse. He actually teaches the 6 stages of Sharanagati, absolute surrender. And you can see nothing but power and strength that he exudes in his surrender to God.
Beautiful. Amazing.
I'm giving much of a sermon here.
No, I loved it. Vulnerability is the pathway to true love. Yeah. How else would you rise from fear, reward, duty, and love, right? Those are the four stages.
Sure.
It's amazing.
Phenomenal.
Think about it. Take this. Our time is up. So take this as a meditation. Just contemplate on this. When we read the Srimad Bhagavad Puran, it's incredible wisdom text. And I share this with my students because I want to be frank and honest with them. And so I told them, I said, look, there is this queen. Her name is Kunti Devi. And she is sick. She is the epitome of what society would call someone with an excessive Stockholm syndrome. Like if there's something more worse than a Stockholm syndrome is what she's got from the material lens. But now let me give you another lens. The lens is that she was given up for adoption the moment she was born. Imagine to take a child from their mother's breast and hand it over to someone else. What trauma, what emotional damage would cause that person? And she's 14 years old. She gives birth to a child living in this protective, incredible palace. And due to societal pressure, she has to give up this child. Who wants to give up a piece of them? She literally takes this child, wraps it up in cloth, and puts it in a river in a basket. What insane person would do such a thing? The emotional impact, the social impact. Think about it. And then she's married this prince, this great king, and he can't have any children. He dies in the forest, and she has to adopt co-wives' children as her own and raise them as her own, as mother to 5 kids. While everybody in the world wants to kill those 5 children because those are powerful kids. And they want to kill your children. How would you feel? They burn down the house that you live in. They try to poison your kids. Every possible way. And what is she praying? And this woman is praying for more suffering and pain. If that's not crazy and insane, then what is? From a material perspective, right?
Yeah.
So then I make the students understand what is really happening inside of her. Why is she doing this? Because she has created the most magnificent temple in her heart. And she captured and held bondage the deity, the heart, the object of her love. So much so that the more she went through difficulties, the more the presence of the divine was felt in her whole heart. And her whole existence was completely engulfed with pure emotions of love. So she was not feeling all this torture. She was actually feeling more and more love and more closer to God. So I was teaching to students, I said, don't try to pray to God to remove your obstacles, because God can do that very easily. She prayed to God to be with her. Please, God, every time I'm in difficulty, you're always with me. So just give me more difficulty so you can always be with me. And what better companion in life than to have God with you at all times when you're going through hell? This is where the difference between the material lens and the lens of the heart. You can only understand her predicament, her consciousness, when you look at her life with the lens of the heart, because that's where everything's happening.
Absolutely loved it. It's amazing. I'm definitely going to sit and think and meditate on it. But my takeaway was like this true surrender can be messy, can be non-linear and very painful, like from the outside. But the moment we accept Krishna's plan, the moment we accept everything, let go of our control, our ego for the God sitting here in the heart's temple, that's when the true surrender comes. Thank you so much for showing us how to build this temple in the heart. It
Yeah.
is, yeah, it's not just built by external offerings or external acts, but by true inner surrender.
What I really appreciated was, just by Queen Kunti's example, was the perspective, the lens that you're talking about.
Sure.
In any situation, changing your perspective can completely change the dynamics of how you deal with the situation.
Sure. Sure.
And that's what this podcast has done for me. It's really changed my perspective of how I would like to practice spirituality. So thank you so much, Veda, for coming and speaking with us and our viewers. And I'm really, truly wanting to do the Chitta Cleanse whenever
Definitely.
you're ready with your next batch. Really amazing. Thank you for all the work that you're
I'm
doing.
happy. I'm not sure what you guys do, but I'll be intrigued to know. I saw some of your clips on the videos, the
Mm.
spirit talks. I think it's a great. I think it's a great title for a podcast, and I'm sure you guys are doing great because I saw some of the clips. It looks like people are having fun. Yeah, Bhakti is just about having fun.
It's about having conversations. And sorry, looks like I cut out for a second. But it's about having conversations about, and actually, this whole podcast was based on the need for having this community and the conversations and being vulnerable and talking about our struggles, talking about our challenges and inspiring each other. That was the main theme of really Spirit
I think we go
Talks.
in line with your Chitta Cleanse. We reflect, we journal. Sometimes some things we really like, we journal as well. And then we share it with the Sangha.
Yeah, our tagline is listen, speak, and transform.
That's your tagline.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So thank you again,
Thank you,
Veda, for
Vedaji.
coming to
It
our
was a heart
show. And
transforming conversation. Thank you.
we hope we can have you back for many
Definitely.
more discussions.
I don't know about that, but
No, and give us, maybe we can do a session where we can actually do something practical with the
you
viewers.
should do, you
You know,
should do a
something,
retreat.
yeah, yeah.
We should do a Spirit Talks retreat in New Vrindavan.
That'd be fun.
Definitely. Phenomenal. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the good intent behind your actions, and I'm sure the actions are also having an impact in the world. The world needs. I like the Spirit Talks because it's almost like heart talk, and my channel is called Heart Space.
Oh,
My
Ah,
calls are called Heart Space Talks.
wonderful.
I don't call it Heart Space Talks. We just call it Heart Space.
Wonderful. Thank you again.
thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.